just get started, okay? So hello, beautiful people. Hello, everybody watching this. Thank you for joining us. My name is Tara Love Perry. I'm an author and a spiritual teacher and a self-love teacher. And with me today, I'm really grateful and humbled and honored to have these beautiful, strong, powerful, outspoken and courageous women with me today, and light workers. All of us here are light workers, channelers, coaches, healers of various kinds. Jen Mccarty, thanks for being here, beautiful. And also Jen's just become an author, so well done, Jen. Go and check out her book, Twin Flames in the Event, literally just published. Super beautiful book. Thanks for being here with us, Jen. And we have Lisa Bartello, also intuitive channeler and general incredible woman, and she's going to tell you more about that. Thanks for joining, Lisa. And also Rozy Glow. Thanks for joining us, Rosie, multi-dimensional coach and again, healer, general superwoman, all super women. And this video is about the children. And I put out a call to these incredible women a few days ago, maybe a week ago, when I had an experience where I'd watched something and I hadn't watched videos for ages, and I finally caught up with the story about the actor Isaac. And his surname begins with K. And the information that he'd put out on YouTube Live some while ago. Now, I'd seen that name flashed around. I didn't know what it meant. I finally got around to watching the video. And that was like the camel that broke the needle that, what do you call it? The straw. The last thing, thank you. The straw that broke the camel's back. I just couldn't, it's like something in me just went, no. And it raised such a fury, such an anger, such empathy and a grief. And I spent 2 days really crying my heart out and praying and recovering from that. And it just made me feel like enough is enough. I don't know about you girls, how long you've known about this stuff. I've known about it for a very long time. I've been grew up in an environment where I was told this information, exposed to the information that was going on. People in, was always called a conspiracy theory because of all these things that I knew about. And I didn't talk about them very much because I didn't want to be labeled, and I just wanted to fit in and do good things, right? I didn't want to be ostracized. So I've known about these things for a long time. And then of course, last year, once the illness hit everybody, all this information started coming out a lot more prolifically. And I watched that film, Fall of the Cabal, and I was just like, flipping heck, this is coming out to the surface now, big time. And I learned some new things as well watching that information, and it was shocking and horrific. And I had to do a lot of my own personal healing to, as I'm sure you girls did as well, going, okay, I'm feeling the grief in my own personal self and also the collective grief. I'm feeling their pain for those children. I need to first heal myself so I can be in an empowered place to then be efficient and help others. So I spent time doing that. And then this video that I watched last week just tipped it over. And I was like, you know what? We are creeping around, a lot of us, talking about things in a quiet way or a coded way, which we're going to continue to do in this video, because one, we respect our audiences and our platforms, and we don't want to, we want to remain visible. This information has to come out. And except I know that a lot of people are going to feel that, like many of our followers, that they don't want to hear this information. They'd rather not hear about it. It's too upsetting, it's too sensitive, and it's not all love and light, and they don't want to hear about it. It just sounds negative and dark. And my response to that is, and I really want to hear your response as well, ladies, on, first of all, how you feel about people who are saying they don't want to know about this evil stuff that is happening to our children on this planet. And when we're trying to talk about it, how people respond and react. And personally, I feel that if anything that we share today is going to upset any of you, and you'd rather not know how distressing it is for millions and millions of children on this planet and want to do something to stop it, I suggest you just switch off the video right now. However, I think that some grown-ups being upset about this, it's like the least we could do is be upset about it. we should be upset about it. We should be bawling our eyes out in the streets together as women, as mothers, as parents, as responsible adults, trying to put a stop to this. We should be upset about it. So if this is upsetting for you, just think about how it is for those kids that are going through this. And so I encourage you to stay open and keep listening. So thank you for that. Ladies, what do you feel about, first of all, how people are responding to this information that's coming out?
Do you want to direct us, one of us, to speak, Tara?
No, any of you go ahead, just jump in.
I'm happy to just share something because it's been coming up quite a lot in those that I've been working with for a while, and obviously they're, you know, looking at whether they're interested in what's going on and whether they're not interested. And a lot of it, I feel, comes to whether people feel powerless or not. If they feel like there is the potential to be able to do something, then it's also about them being able to discover the courage within them. And we are living in a society that is entirely programmed by fear, you know, so we're too scared. We've been having a conversation that off camera as well. It's just like the fear of actually seeing this for what it is. Part of it is that the illusion goes and we feel compelled to act, right? But we've talked about cognitive dissonance in other meetings, etc. And essentially it seems like it is just too horrific for people to come to accept that most of the fabric of society, the fabric of what we thought was real, is not. It's a structure of control and illusion that has been deliberately designed. And that is really hard for people to accept, because most of us are bimbling about in our lives and we give money to charity and we hear about the odd thing that happens. But no one's been faced with this level of terror in this generation before globally, right? And whether it's about being ill or the other stuff that's coming up underneath as a result, this is the sickness of our society and culture. And as a global community, we have to face it, but how we face it is going to be different for everybody. Like, it depends what we can stomach. And what I've seen is, depending on our wounding, some of us are compelled to act and fight and speak up, and others are, it's almost like the fight, flight, freeze response being played out in the collective, right? Depending on our wounding, how we respond to this, and whether we shut down or we actually do step forward. That's my experience right now.
Thanks, Rosie. Yeah, anyone jump in? Seriously, just like go with it if you've got something to say on this.
Well, you know, I often think that I should come out louder with my knowledge in general. So when you sent the invitation, you know, I was really glad, because I can't avoid it. You know, it's like, if it comes into my sphere now, I have to acknowledge it. 5 years ago, I would say I was I was so happy to talk about my rose-colored glasses and how, you know, I'm glad ignorance is bliss, you know. And then I had these, you know, unimaginable things happen to me. And even 2 years into that, I was saying, oh, you know, it's a mistake. And when they figure out I'm a kind, loving person, they're going to stop. So I realized, you know, what you referred to, Rosie, is like the whole basis of my beliefs. Every single thing was a lie and was based in fear, you know, in this fourth dimensional ego trap, you know, where, so I reached this place where it's like, we cannot heal the earth unless we acknowledge the ills of the earth. How do we change this if we don't even acknowledge it? And I also came to the place where it was just, you know, like, okay, is this really real? You know, because you want to know someone, you know, right next to you that it happened to. That's the other thing, right? It's like that left brain linear thinking that we refuse to acknowledge our cognizance and you know, all these messages. I have a crazy active intuitive mind, but you know, when I said, okay, show me the proof, you know, then I ended up on calls people who had been doing this for 40 years. And certainly in the work that I do, certainly every other, you know, at least 1 in 2 is sexually abused. So it is definitely an imprint on the soul of all of us that, you know, we have to acknowledge it in order to heal it. So you know, I was just really happy, like, oh, I don't necessarily want to get on a call and talk about this, but thank you, because I'm glad, your anger definitely, I definitely was like, oh, good. This is, this is important. Like, how do we acknowledge this, this mother wound?
Mm-hmm.
And really, we cannot heal the earth in any way, shape, or form unless we acknowledge and heal the children.
I agree. And I think the way I perceive it is, like it's a generational thing. I grew up in North London and I went to school in Hampstead, and that was where the most deepest, darkest, prolific satanic abuse was taking place within those children's homes in Hampstead. And I feel like my parents' generation were kind of like, well, that's just what happens, abuse within like establishments, and this is just what happens in the world. And I feel that maybe is, I mean, I don't want to lump all baby boomers into one category, but I feel definitely from my ancestral lineage that I'm like, where my mum kind of said, well, that's just kind of what happens in the world. I was like, on my watch, while I have a voice, while those children cannot speak, I'm not going to shut up about it, because it's not acceptable. What's the point? Being spiritual doesn't mean nothing. It means absolutely nothing if we do not give a voice to the most vulnerable beings in our world. And so I think a lot of us are waking up from this, this is such a massive part of the programming, is this idea, and that it has been the objective of the programming, is to disempower us and to move us away from our sovereignty, so that we can go, oh, that's just what happens in the world. Children just go missing, they get abused, they get chopped up, the works. And it's just like, no, we have to rise now, and we have to be that voice. So I think, that's what's being exposed a lot at the moment, for myself, is wakening from this complacency and this realization, that I am a sovereign being. My voice is very, very powerful. It is very important. And I'm going to use it to, to support the whole of society, every vulnerable person in society. So I think that is definitely, what has kept us quite stuck. But I think our generation that have come from our parents, they provided a wonderful springboard for a lot of us to really, really, to explore our consciousness. I mean, I know that my mum did, even though she was quite limited. She gave me the springboard to not kind of like have those programs enforced on me quite as much. So I think for all of us, we've just got to awaken from the programming and realize that we have to speak up. Like, now is the time. So that's my little bit for now, Tara.
No, thank you. And if we don't speak up, and if this doesn't come out, then what's going to happen? How bad is it going to get? If people want to see it on their own doorstep, or like you said, you need to know somebody to realize it's actually real. Talk to your girlfriends. How many women, like you said, Lisa, have experienced sexual abuse? How many women experience sexual abuse as children, or men as well? Look, people experience sexual abuse. And if, this started coming out a bit more into the open a couple of years ago, but yet it still could be talked about more. So if we need to know if it's really happening, of course it's really happening, and it's really happening for a very long time. When we go into the deeper levels of it, what is actually happening to the children? Why do we keep going on about the children? Are the tunnels real? Yes, they're real. Is the evil satanic rituals real? Yes, they're real. How do we know? And I just want to say to you, I don't know if any of you know this, but even places like London Bridge or Tower Bridge, London Bridge, Houses of Parliament were built on Masonic ritual. Masonic ritual involves sacrifice, bloodshed of the innocent. It involves torture. It involves, it's about invoking the power over others, and not power as in a beautiful superpower that's love and light for everybody. This is about invoking and harnessing and embodying and being a transmuter of a kind of power that is power over others, power over the innocent, power over the vulnerable, power over the weaker people. And I pretty much consider that these kinds of people that do this stuff don't consider us people. They don't consider us human beings. We're fodder. We are simply there. We're the minions to serve whatever it is that whatever their agenda is. So these rituals didn't just happen in London, but they were specifically around the centre of the city of London and the buildings of power, underground, in secret, with certain levels of awareness. You had to have, obviously, like the Masons, there's certain levels of awareness, certain levels of power. And at the very heart of it, those with the most power are initiated. They go through these rituals and initiations, and the innocent and the children are sacrificed. Now, did you know that London Bridge is built on sacrifice of babies? It is. Go research it. So,
I'm not surprised, hon.
right, and so this is, I mean, how long has that building been around? I don't actually know how long that's been around. Somebody Google it, but that's, you know, that I know about that. I knew about that as a teenager. Going back to other buildings, other massive centres of power, where do we think those are? Oh, they're on Capitol Hill, they're in Washington. Where else are they? They're in Vatican, which is its own separate state. Yeah, exactly, right? And these are three of the most powerful forces, the centres of these powerful forces on this planet, and they've been around a long, long time. Up until now, it's been mostly hidden, except it's not. It's in plain sight. So how do we know? How do we recognize this? And how many children are being used? Because these powers have grown over the years. There's more and more of them. There are these secret societies, and they use symbols to communicate, just like we did thousands and thousands of years ago before we had language, because symbols communicate energy and power. And how many of us use totems and symbols in our jewelry, in our, you know,
Right there.
in our decor, in our lives? We use symbols to communicate who we are. We use symbols like, if I wear a flower of life, I'm communicating, this is what I believe in, this is my ethic to other people. And they'll see my flower of life and go, I believe in that too. So we recognize one another. Or if you wear crystals, or if whatever it is that you wear, you know, whether it's gold or diamonds, you're communicating who you are to other people, so that other people of a similar nature will recognize you and you know who your own are. You know what I mean? And so this is happening on the really, really dark level. And these symbols are absolutely everywhere. Girls, do you know much about the symbology?
I do think one of our roles is, you know, I have that weird thing where I see numbers, like the synthesis with creation, sacred geometry, and symbols. So I think, you know, as we become our Christed self, it's part of our role to transmute these symbols, right? Like when I see 33, I see the 33 vertebrae, I see the 33 octaves of sound, I see the Trinity, you know, I see the resurrection. So I think that's part of, like, these symbols have been hijacked from their purest meaning. So
Exactly.
I really think part of our role as unconditional love, like embodying the highest, you know, benevolent energy, is that we can change, you know, what these symbols represent, you know. So sometimes people will argue, well, you know, 33, I said, no, that for me is like a beautiful thing. When I see triangles upside down, right side up, that's the 6-point star. And I had a period in my life when I just kept seeing, I'm like, why do I keep seeing the Star of David? You know, I didn't know what it meant, but then I realized finally it was like, I am you, you are me, as above, so below, right? And so I think part of this whole symbol thing is us taking that, us who are so clearly speaking truth and embodying love, and just changing those symbols for the good, and not, you know, not allowing them to be hijacked.
And for the people that don't know what symbols we're talking about, any of you willing to share? Like when you say 33, I actually didn't realize there was 33 things in the spine. My dad was a back therapist. I didn't even know that. Thank you. But so, you know, in terms of what symbols have been hijacked, what do they now mean? Where can people find these? Because once you see it, you can't unsee it, can you? Once you know, you have to do your own research. Obviously, you're not going to believe us, but I'm here with these beautiful women wanting to point you audience in the direction of going and finding this out for yourself? And what symbols should people look for?
I just want to say I've got a 33 tattoo, and I'm all about that.
33.
Yeah, and it's totally about the Kundalini. It's about the 33 vertebrae in the spine, and
Right.
it's how the Kundalini rises to the ascension, to the ascension through the crown. So it's a master number as well. It's to do with the Trinity. It's such a beautiful, exquisite vibration, and yeah, they're just messing around. They can't really invert that. They've tried, but it's too beautiful. But I think, Tara, you're talking about like the spirals and stuff, the triangles and the spirals and things, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm talking about that. Yeah,
it's so horrible, and it's you know, it will induce terrible nightmares. I couldn't sleep for months when I really found out about the DUMS last year. Oh God, it's just horrific to know that so many adults are colluding to traumatize children. It is just. How do you process that?
When you say DUMS, can you explain what that is?
So I learned from Gene Decode about the deep underground military bases, and basically I didn't know about that. That was the hardest red pill. I mean, I was red pill since 2000, but that was the hardest red pill I had to swallow, was learning about the deep underground military bases, where a lot of these children that go missing, there's kind of like openings in mountains and stuff like that. There's like all these different openings, and then you go down and it's this other kind of like subterranean world. And Jean was saying that they've built this train system that can get from London to New York in like 20 minutes or something like that. So all of the elites are using this very, very high advanced technology. You know, it's super advanced, and there's a lot of experimentation going on, and a lot of cages, and this was from Gene, and you know, he was a Navy SEAL or Navy officer, so it's a direct kind of, you know, whistleblower experience. But then, you know, there's loads of people talking about the DUMS. There's loads of evidence pointing to the DUMS. And it's horrific. It's absolutely horrific.
I just want to share that I feel like I'm coming in here as someone who probably knows a little bit less, like other than, you know, reading books from about 20 years ago, the certain David chap that, you know, I could only read a bit of the book because I started to see things I just couldn't deal with and I had to shut it down. I'm really fascinated really about how what's going on in the world today is relating to the First and Second World War. When you look at the swastika and the fact that it's an inverted symbol that was once very powerful and very pure. And the kind of experimenting we're talking about is experimenting that was going on in Nazi Germany, was going on and has been going on ever since. And what has fascinated me, and this has literally been in the last week that I've been piecing it all together, is I've mentioned a certain Mr. G and a certain, you know, wife of his and their wonderful foundations and goodwill. The more I track the involvement, the more I'm seeing here that these companies that are being heavily invested in now by these very people are actually the companies that were responsible for the chemicals that were killing people in the concentration camps, the bombs. You know, these are the same companies that are now being whitewashed and being made out to be the future tech. And then you've got also Silicon Valley having come in, which is just consciousness without compassion. And this is what I'm seeing here, is that if we know that source, that love is consciousness and compassion combined, you take one element out and it's like you have now just consciousness, you have AI, you have the potential to do what these people are doing without, because they haven't got the compassion. You know, we talk about selling our souls, when you talk about the entertainment industry and how this is all linked up. And every horror story you're hearing that you hear as a conspiracy theorist that you brush off because you think, I can't even deal with that, I've got to cook dinner. And you're like, okay, but this is all coming together because people are so desperate for an external validation or love or whatever that they are literally prepared to do anything for that. And when you bring this back to the way this sort of machine-like pleasure, this is the machine-like experimentation and the apparent disassociation from emotion and pain, you know, the level of that, you know, we go down the satanic route or we just go down the route of, in plain terms, wounded people cause pain. right? Wounded people are the people that hurt others. Happy, well-nourished, loving, fulfilled beings don't. So if we then start getting esoteric and talking about influence in the astral plane or influence beyond the physical, right? If we're wounded, if we're in pain, we are more prone to that kind of attack. And then the way that we're healing ourselves or thinking we are or feeling again is to do that kind of, to implement that kind of pain on others. We can then see that there is one, this power play that you're talking about, Tara, and then also how the wounded become part of that power play and protagonists of that play. And then what do we do? Because Lisa, you mentioned, I think, the mother wound, right? And, you know, ultimately, we can point our fingers at the naughty boys out here that have done terrible, terrible things on this planet, because it does seem to be a masculine, predominantly in the past, certainly, although, you know, there are women involved as well. Everyone to this point, although it's arguable that there's been a lot of experimenting since, has grown in a womb. So every one of us absorbs the frequencies of the generations before, the unprocessed emotions, the unprocessed pain. We know there is loads of evidence and research that says, you know, the way that a baby was born, if it was traumatic, when you look at murderers, you look at the implements that they actually used, whether they strangled, whether they stabbed, whether they, however they actually did it, that you can, when the studies were done and they looked at the birth stories of these individuals, you can see it's unprocessed trauma. Now take that back to women being raped during their pregnancy, abused, etc. You can see how this has been happening and how it's been hijacked. And I just want to say, Star Wars, Star Peace. We are a planet. My background is in pregnancy, fertility, all of that stuff, and working with public health on that level. Our planet is addicted to fear and adrenaline. How much of that is self-created here and how much of it is being influenced? We've got 6 movies, if not 9 now, that are all called Star Wars, blah, 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 right? And it's like, where's the Star Peace? You put Netflix on, everything is more or less about adrenaline or pain, right? It's like we get our kicks from this. This is what we're tuned into. So it's so pervasive that it has to be right under our noses now. And it is the women, was it the Dalai Lama said that it is the Western woman that will save the world? Now, I don't want to say Western and offend anyone from anywhere, right? I believe it's women that are going to save the world, because we come forward and we say, not on my watch, like you said. So, you know,
through me, like it's a validation of exactly what you're saying. So
thank you. We're doing it. We're doing it. And we can be scared, but when a child is in trouble, the strength, what strength do we have? We lift cars, we get, you know, we have superpowers, and that's what we have to remember. And one thing I do want to say, because many mothers will be watching this, you think that this maternity system that we have is the best system. I want to make it very clear to you that it is engineered to rob us of our power. I've been watching it for years. It's why I stopped teaching pregnancy yoga. It's why I stopped being in the world of trying to educate people about it from the level I was at, because I could see what was happening in public policy. You know, we think we're doing what's best for our babies, but what we're doing is we're giving over to plastics, to synthetic hormones, to machines, and to external validation to tell us what we've already known all along. Because every time a woman that I know has lost a baby in pregnancy, she knew before the machine knew, right? So when we actually look at this and we say you add synthetic hormones, you rob a woman of a capacity to conceive naturally, because, you know, we're so messed up at this point that it's harder to get pregnant naturally than it is in many ways by getting some external support. You also have the fact that you're scared all through the pregnancy, because the pathology is to look for what's wrong, not what's right. You're not supporting a woman to feel confident. We've got the current situation, which is creating even more fear. Now, this has the potential to set us back many generations, or it has the potential for us, as we clear our cellular memory, claim our power, and do the same thing simultaneously for our children, that in 2 generations, we can actually wipe out birth trauma. We can clear it. We can wipe out the trauma of all that happens and has happened that keeps recreating wars. But we have to go back to coming into sync with our cycles, our natural hormones, nature, because all of this holds the codes of oxytocin and of peace on earth. And that is really, I feel, a big part of all of this, because you see a woman who's traumatized from birth, she doesn't even realize she's traumatized, but she's had an induction, maybe she's had some kind of intervention to pull the baby out, baby separated from mother. There's 60 years worth of research to tell you what that does and how you can prepare a woman in pregnancy to give birth to a warrior, to someone whose hindbrain is going to develop faster than their forebrain, than the other way around. And that's been happening very subtly, but it's been happening for the last 40 years. I've been seeing it. Looks like we have little wins, but actually we're going backwards. So that's really important for us to address.
Oh, fair play for mentioning that, actually, Rosie, and I completely and utterly agree with you. I've been seeing the same thing for the last 20 years with people and watching how basically the conditioning for birth and leading up to birth is horrific. So we think that mind control is only happening once, you know, we're out of the womb, but no, it's happening inside the womb because it's mind control to the parents and the fear. And absolutely, I'm really happy and glad that you said that. I completely agree with you about what's being called the medical institution. It shouldn't even be called anything to do with health, in my opinion, because it's literally there to rob a woman of her power, of her divine, exquisite, potentially ecstatic experience of bringing a new body and a new soul and a new spirit that is super high and pure vibration in essence into this world. We can actually birth and bring that whole being fully through in their entire soul of who they are, in their entire spirit of who they are, and have the most empowering experience of our lives. I was very fortunate. I had 2 experiences like that with my 2 children, and I know it's absolutely possible because I did it and it was incredible. And I can see through the amount of people that I've worked with and also with soul reading and seeing people's birth and seeing the conception and what was going on pre-conception, it was all adding up thousands of times over that this is something that needs reclaiming. Women reclaiming our own bodies, our own sovereignty, our power, and therefore I think having the knock-on effect on our children. Because if we've given our power away, if we've allowed people to take our thoughts, to take our mind, to take our body, to change our emotions with plasticides and hormones and chemicals and God knows what else, what's left of us? How on earth are we going to protect our children? What kind of children are we going to raise? It's really important, I think, to dial it back. The way that you've done that is really, really important. That needs to be reclaimed. And reclaiming our own inner child, like we started off saying, with that healing of ourselves, reclaiming our own inner child, healing our own inner child damage, super important. I recommend everyone should do that. And it might take, probably will take a couple of generations to do that. However, right now, there's the practical element. There are our children, like, what is it? Somewhere between 8 and 10 billion children estimated on this planet right now. These are the ones that have been found or we know about, let alone all the other children this is happening to behind closed doors that's not part of the global elite perhaps, or it's actually just happening in people's homes, especially during this lockdown period, which is, I mean, how many of these are we going to stomach as well? By the way, we're on number 3 right now. Are we really going to let there be a number 4? Are we really going to let even more of this horrific damage happen to our families and our children and our loved ones? So I want to come back to that part. But yeah, like something needs to happen now. I personally, I don't want to see this for the rest of my life, knowing that this is happening and that we didn't do something to stop it or make it more visible in the world.
Agreed. Issue we have is we know we can't trust the services, right?
Don't trust the services.
And this is the issue, is if you're talking about making a decision, everyone who watches this, make a decision in your heart. What are we doing? Are we going to take our parents' generation, which is, this is the way the world is, deal with it? Or are we going to say, we co-create the world and we demand something different? Because all of us had that as children, looking around going, this makes no sense. That was my experience. So in that case, now is the time that we say, no, this isn't happening. Okay, so if I can't trust the services, then it's down to me. If it's happening next door and I can hear it, if I know I've got my suspicions, then I need to be visible. I need to make this visible. Show me how, higher self. And this is another important thing, is don't let your lower programming, fear programming be what decides things for you. You've got to call your higher self in and ask that part to lead your decision making. Then you are able to make the kind of decisions that are coming from love and our whole place, because fear can motivate us, anger can motivate us. But if we're not careful, we keep recreating the fight and the struggle because we're stuck in it. So let's do our own inner healing on this and then act with that is around us, because you can't ignore it if it's in your field. Lisa, you said that as well.
Yes, and I think, I mean, just being here, right, is really important. We're setting an important intention, and I call it the 11. You know, it's like we are balancing our feminine and masculine energy within us, right? So we're willing to stand up and be sovereign. And of course, Jen, your work with Twin Flames, you know, that becomes exponential balancing. One thing I know for sure is that the elites are very, very aware of how dangerous it is for two twins to come together in Christed light. So I think, you know, it's so important that just by being here and acknowledging what's happening, you know, Canada's a funny thing, right? The narrative with Canada has always been, oh, everyone's so nice. And that's like totally a bullshit created narrative, you know, to say, hey, we had the resident schools here, which are, you know, just, I don't even know how to explain it, just like abhorrent. And everybody that's tried to expose it, and we have plenty of underground caves here. And, you know, we got these, you know, sort of mass majority still that, you know, oh, this must not exist. Thank God we're not south of the border. And, you know, it's always like 800,000 children disappearing every year in the States and 50,000 in Canada. But relative to population size, you know, these are big numbers. And I think just, I can't say over and over enough, we have to acknowledge. And when I meet people, every client I have, I've had someone who didn't end up coming to me, you know, one of my first connections, and, you know, I got that she was sexually abused and she died. So, you know, people like that, she was a big lesson for me. And I had a parallel reading a couple of weeks later of someone with the exact same circumstance. So in every situation, it's like you have to speak your truth. You have this stagnant energy stuck inside you. You have this ancestral, you know, energy. And I have that in my lineage, right? My mother is one of 7 children, and her father was a doctor, and, you know, her mother was beaten, like thrown down the stairs when she was having boys. And my grandfather was a doctor. And this also, you know, was crazy. I've only just learned this in the last year, but original tribes of Abraham, you know, so it's like, I was tracked, I found out, partially because of that, or, you know, who knows, because of being mouthy about the children and mouthy about the human body. But in every moment, you know, when we can touch someone's heart and we can work with them, you know, I have what I call my star client, where, you know, and I made sure that I never work under organizations that restrict that conversation. One of my friends became a professional coach, and she immediately dropped it. It was like a complete waste, because she said she couldn't talk about sexual abuse, you know, so it's like, what's the point? You know, so when I have clients, I say, okay, like, you have to deal with this and you have to speak your truth. And the star pupil is 24 hours. She went home after 15 years and told her partner, and told, you know, it's just like standing in their power. So I think, and, you know, acknowledging, like you said, like the Vatican is the shape of the room, right? With gargoyles and sands of time sideways, and all the traffic goes into the womb. You know, we have to acknowledge these institutions as well. So, you know, I'm not sure how. I was on calls last year, invited with a bunch of people who have been doing this for many years. And one lady ended up being really close to me. So she was very surprised to meet someone else in Canada. But, you know, someone who was a psychotherapist who kept bringing these examples into the hospital, and they wouldn't even believe her in the 80s, you know, so that's part of the problem. She is still connected with the patient or client who she lost her credentials over, you know, and the person still supports her. So, but, you know, people like that are wonderful. It's like choosing to continue to do this work no matter what. And some of these stories, you know, they were unimaginable, and they were trying to give us the most shocking that they could on these calls, because they said, we have to prepare more light workers. We have to prepare more people who will work with these children in the coming years, because they certainly, and some of them work directly with the military, and said that they, you know, that this year there would be a lot more people emerging that needed help, that needed support, and clearing the blueprint of that soul, like you're saying, through every realm, through every dimension. It's like this, we have to change the blueprint of the earth.
Tell us more about the military. Do you know more about what's happening?
Well, again, this is all to my intuition. Like, so my twin was someone in the military who was quickly removed from me. So I feel, you know, this is definitely divine design, where there are factions in every single corner of the world, right? The 144 or whatever you want to call it. I definitely have complete faith that there are people that have, you know, that are working in the military that totally understand what's happening. And, you know, this goes back to JFK and the special forces, right? Where there's two sides of the three-letter agencies. You know, one has not been working in the light and one has. So from my understanding, all three of the people I was on calls with that were, you know, I would say really, what's the word, like really entrenched in this world, all said they are working with the, you know, contacts in the military. One was like focusing on Romania, one is in UK or maybe Ireland, and the one here, but she said most of her work was not with Canadians, but one of them posted a company, and it was grades or levels of adrenochrome. So that was very quickly, you know, removed. But
What do you mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean, levels, grades?
So there's a couple things. They said that, I actually have this all written down, but there are companies, for example, that use like fetal aborted cells, and, you know, to get into our food chain and things like that. And this company had children's names, their blood types, you know, which is often RH, and the quality of their blood. So, and
add into food. I mean, are you talking about the food additives now?
No, well, those are two separate things, but just the things that, you know, people are like, you know, like I tried to tell my mom and she was like, absolutely not going to have any of it. And it's interesting too, because I just went back to some channels I pulled of Mary Magdalene on from Tom Kenyon's website. I don't know if you guys are familiar. He's more of a music guy, but he channels Mary Magdalene, right? So she had a whole section on the iron core of the earth and bloodletting, and how, you know, this has been a ritual forever. So it was interesting because, of course, that just came up this week after you scheduled the call. But, you know, over and over again, I guess for myself, where I just have to say, like, there's no denial, right? This is real, like you said, and so many of these structures. And I think every time we acknowledge them, we help to heal them, right? Every time we acknowledge, like, hey, this is, you know, not quite as it is. And I just love the fact that so many males and females are coming into their balance, you know, with their feminine and masculine energy. And I think that's shifting the earth as well.
So if people don't know who are watching this, adrenochrome, go, if you haven't found out about that, go, that is just going to knock your socks off of how utterly horrific that is. And of course, largely to do with the people that we're talking about, and the big entertainers in America specifically use this a lot to preserve their age and yeah, get their kicks off something which is really, really horrific. I want you to go and check that out. But you're right, Lisa. I mean, you didn't get too specific there, but there's information that I learned about, what, I mean, goodness, what, 8 years ago, about how, yes, aborted fetal cells of children, babies, were being used as food additives because it gave the food a certain quality, but also, I mean, it's not just about taste, is it? You don't go, what's going to make my, you know, nice Nestle breakfast cereal taste good, or my nice Tropicana orange juice taste good. It's not, I'll go, no, you know, take some baby fetal cells. No, there's a much darker agenda, and people won't want to believe this. You won't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe it. When I heard about it, I was like, no, seriously, I'm done. That can't be real. Don't even go there. You know, I want to protect my children. I don't want them to be told they can't drink the certain orange juice or eat certain, you know, Nestle chocolate bars or whatever it is, you know, craft cheeses, because they have potentially this nasty stuff in. And I wanted to protect my kids and not expose them to that, because it was being said in front of them. I was like, this is too horrific. However, guess what? There's more information that's come out recently, and I was reading about it again in this last week since I asked us to do this call. I mean, it's becoming more public, this information. It's almost like they want us to know. But we've got to that level of such helplessness and hopelessness almost, with these, you know, a whole year of being stuck in our houses and feeling helpless. What do you do? I would say, like, research this stuff and go and boycott those companies. Number one, do not ever buy from those companies ever again, because it's not about flavor. It's about, look what we can do and look what we can put in your food and look how much power we have over you. And, you know, that's dark, evil stuff right there. Yeah. And also, of course, it's very, very common knowledge. And if you yet don't know this, go and look at what's being put into the injections that are going in everybody's arms right now by the millions, that are, again, aborted fetal cells, aborted baby cells. I mean, it's just horrible. Go and check it out.
Oh, I'm thinking about things like people don't even realize, you know, we're going deep, but people don't even realize, like, the baby products that they buy for their babies have got cancer-causing chemicals in them. The things that we have, what I don't understand is how advertising is legal, because advertising to me seems like it's just lying in a public arena. And because people buy, it's like the attention that we put on whatever we watch, we are energizing as being real, right? And one of the reasons I feel that people so don't want to go there and don't want to believe it is that in this, it's a bit like the 4D, 5D shift, isn't it? A lot of law of attraction stuff says, don't entertain dark thoughts, don't entertain your negativity, because you'll just create it in the world. And it's like, no, mate. Let's just take from Boris Johnson and his idea to suppress this virus. You cannot suppress a virus, right? It mutates, it comes back out. So our darkness, wherever it is, needs to be met, seen, and the light needs to be brought to the shadow. So this arena, if it's being in our faces, left, right, and center, and we're still wanting to ignore it because we're scared to energize it because we then accept it's real, we have to say, well, the only way out is through. It's like birth. You go through it and you say, now I know it, I can't unknow it, so what am I going to do about it? And it's one thing to see something you couldn't see before. It's another thing to take that information and not go, like use it to propel a shift rather than to keep promoting a story of victim consciousness, right? There's a lot of layers here with this. I don't know. I know that the divide and conquer thing is classic, right? I mean, one of the things that I've been really interested in is we've heard about it in the past that the wars, we've just taken wars for granted. Like, this is just what happened. But then when you look at the stories behind them, you're like, wow, these have been created. This is not like it's just happened and we had to deal with it. It's been created. Even that question about those buildings that came down that time, that a few years ago, right? There was no evidence at all to go and do the bombing that happened as a result of it. But it was utilized as the reason why, just like what we're dealing with today. And good people are trying to do what they're told because they don't want to upset others. They don't want to create more fear in the world by standing too close to someone who's scared, for example, rather than having that confronting conversation. It's like, what are you basing your fear on? And why are you trusting the people that you never normally trust, but now you're in fear, you're doing what you're told? Like, what's that about? We all need to be willing to show up. But some of the best people, and I say good people I know, they'll say, well, I don't mind putting one of those on for a couple of minutes to like not upset other people and not freak them out. And I get that on the one hand. And on the other hand, I'm going, you don't really know what this stands for, do you? No. Why are we doing this when the death rate is, was it 90? Well, 99 point, was it 98, 94%, whatever you want to call it, even in the most vulnerable population, the amount of people recovering and not dying does not justify this at all. At all. It's insane. It's insane.
Totally.
And we're doing it still.
We need to upset people. To be honest, if we tiptoe around not upsetting people because there's too much distressing reality happening, and we go, let's cover it over and not acknowledge it, where are we going to be 10 years from now, guys? We're going to be more stuff than we are now. Can we not understand that? This planet has been enslaved for a very long time, and we're going to continue to be enslaved. And the longer we go letting it go unnoticed, the more evident this darkness becomes. And then people just go catatonic and people can't do anything about it. You know, how bad does it have to get before we go, hold on a minute, I am flipping upset about this. I'm fucking horrified about this, that this is happening to our kids, it's happening to our loved ones, this is happening to our planet. When are we going to stand up and say no? I don't care about upsetting people anymore. And it's not that I don't want to deliberately go up and upset people, obviously, but it's like, if something triggers you and it upsets you, that's a you situation, that's a you thing, right? If something upsets you, that's your own denial starting to come to the surface and being triggered. That needs to come out. It needs to come out. I mean, I want to go a little bit back to the symbolism. I want to also hear what Jen's got to say, but you were talking about the Vatican there, Lisa, and the symbolism, and you know, we were talking about the twin flames, and Jen was talking about the Kundalini of the spine, and it's like, there's another symbol, the sword with the two snakes coming up either side, and then the wings or the snake heads. How many times do we see a symbol of that nature in these institutions, these medical institutions, these care institutions, these medicines, you know, the people who are creating the medicines, which are really poisons that are being, you know, experimental poisons being given to people. You look at their logos, you look at their symbology. How many times do you see a logo like that? And it's completely originally taken from the Kadagas, from something which is sacred, from the Tree of Life, from the Kundalini. You can recognize, you know, partly open your eyes and start seeing these labels are everywhere for us to see. Who's trying to grab the power for themselves over others? Jen, what do you have to say on this, or anything?
I think that it all comes down to us awakening on an individual level. You know, like going back to what Rosie was talking about pregnancy, like when I got pregnant, I just, you know, I could have gone down the route of sort of like, you know, doing what the doctors told me, but I was like, no, hold on a minute, I'm going to find out about vaccines, I'm going to find out about natural birth. And I just empowered myself to discover that, you know, you can have a natural birth, your body was just made to give birth. And I'm definitely not going to vaccinate my son, even though I had all this programming and all my family pressure. I was just like, no, I'm not going to do that. Even though I had the weight of like society, like beating down on me, I was just like, no, I'm going to do my own research. This is my baby. This is the most precious creation of my entire existence. I'm not going to be blindly told by you don't love him, you've got no relationship with him, so I'm not going to be blindly led to do what you're telling me to do for my beautiful baby. And so obviously I found out, you know, about the poisonous vaccines. I didn't know anything about vaccines until I had Finn, do you know what I mean? And that was the decision that I made. And I think this is what comes down to this whole awakening. It's like, it has to be on an individual level. Like we all have to just kind of like rise and say no more, you know, but I think the root of it is that we're all such divine beings. We're offspring of Mother, Father, God. We are so pure and precious in our core that we're good girls and boys. And so when mother, you know, father, government and whatever tells us what to do, we're just, you know, we are innately good. We are innately kind. And so we just go along with it. And that's what people have to wake up from. Like, this is where we have to shake everyone and go, no, there is another choice. Like, you know, like, what about all these mothers that are like sticking masks on their kids? What about these mothers that are like sticking these nasal rape that is going on here? But where is the consciousness of these mothers that are doing this? It is shocking. I mean, that's the understatement of the pandemic. It is shocking. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe this split is real. Maybe the split is real. Maybe there are some people splitting that just do not want to sign up for this sovereignty, you know, kind of like trajectory, this ascension trajectory. It's looking very, very much like that. I know that I used to have a lot of resistance to the idea of there being a split, because being in oneness, being in unity consciousness, I just could not conceive how there could possibly be a split. But it's like daily, I'm like, oh my God, I don't think you're coming, hun. I don't think you're coming. I don't think there's any hope. Do you know what I mean? Oh God. So, like with people like that, even if you were to put it in black and white, I mean, I personally think that what's going on, it's not black and white. I'm not saying it's black and white, but generally speaking, I think there's a lot of white hat control going on, particularly with the media, and particularly with the Mr. What's his face, Chiden in the old, you know. And so I think, you know, they're showing videos where the mask is showing, they're showing videos where the set's moving, you know, and this is, I'm getting goosebumps, this is to awaken the sleepers, you know, they're all saying, guys, we're lying to you, your government's lying to you, your media's lying to you, but they won't listen to it from me. My mum, if I said to my mum, BBC's lying to you, she'll, oh, why would they do that, Jane? No, mum, it's a very deep, like 4D reptilian shit going on. Do you know what I mean? I don't explain that to her, obviously, but, you know, and I think we also do have to look at the deeper reasons why. And this is all to do with the fall of Atlantis and what happened. And it was to do with this manipulation, this fourth dimensional kind of like glory. These reptiles were seeking this, you know, they're trying to push God out of the way, and they're like, oh, well, we're going to be like, you know, this is our gig, planet Earth, this is our gig. Do you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, like all these minions, like Mr. G and Mr. Biden, whatever, they are all just the most low-level puppets of this agenda. And people need to understand. I mean, it sounds so ridiculously far out, but we have to awaken to our multidimensionality. You have to realize we are not third dimensional beings. This is a lie. Linear time is a lie. This is heaven on earth. This is the jewel in God's crown. Earth is the jewel in God's crown. This is truly, truly heaven on earth. And so what they've done is these overlords have created like an overlay, like it's a false overlay, or, you know, which is called the matrix. It's not reality. The reality is love. Reality is kindness, family, service. That's reality. All of this is a lie. This is a total and utter lie. And so everyone has to awaken to their multidimensionality. And that is the fact that the programming is telling you you're a third dimensional linear being, but you're not. What about grandfather passed? Where did he go? Did he just go into nothing? No, of course he didn't. He went into a higher, more subtle dimension of reality. And it is our absolute duty as human beings to attune our consciousness to the higher and more subtle dimensions of reality. And then when we do that, we get an opportunity to have a little bit of spaciousness around the matrix. And until we do that, we are identified as being a part of the matrix. But the moment you understand, hold on a minute, no, there's more going on than what I've been led to believe, then that is the moment, then you create that sense of spaciousness and observation. And that is when you set yourself free. And that is what everyone needs to work towards. You need to wake up. You need to realize that this is God's most beautiful, spectacular playground in creation.
Garden of Eden.
Garden of Eden.
Absolutely true. Years ago, the first time I did a soul reading and connected with the Illuminati through somebody's energy field, because they were connected there, way out actually, it was way out in the outer layers. And I started having this conversation with this dark energy that identified as Illuminati. That's the words that I heard. And I was having this conversation, and it was essentially saying that We are here as the most darkest aspect that can be on this level of creation. So in this earth, time, space reality, we're in third dimension, we're in duality, so that we have apparent dark and we have apparent light, and there is separation. There is an apparent separation. We have male and female and all this stuff. And what they said they were doing, that it's like there's a higher self, there's a source creator voice behind absolutely everything that is in this creation that we're in our, and they called it this known universe, the universe that we currently know about, which of course is infinite, but we have very finite knowledge on it. And you know, what about other universes? But this known universe, they said that they represent the very darkest expression, about as far away from source love, self-realization that one could ever possibly have in this human realm. And that they represented that most deepest dark, most absent, most lacking, because that's what it is. It's a lack of love. It's a lack of consciousness. It's a lack of connection and empathy. It's a lack of care and trust. It's a lack of what we, you know, well, for me is normal. It's precious. It's truth. And these beings, these you could maybe still call them human, exist to be this aspect of source creation, so that we have contrast. And because somebody has to hold the dark end and somebody hold the light end, and then you've got the spectrum of everything in between, that full range of human expression that we have, it gets anchored in some form or other. But yet it does not have to stay unconscious. It doesn't have to stay dark. It doesn't have to stay lacking. And what they're actually doing is serving us in a way as the wake-up call. Like, how dark, I keep saying it, how bad, how dark does it have to get, so that we go, hold on a minute, let me switch on my light, my consciousness. Let me switch on my ability to see. Let me stop hiding. Let me switch on my love. Let me become conscious and start being the being that I'm designed to be, that source creator in human form. And then what do we do when we see this evil? What we've called evil, this cabal, Illuminati, whatever words we want to say, even the devil itself. Can we love it? Can we transform that whole spectrum and put truth into the whole spectrum? Feed that dark anchoring and go, thank you for being here. Now your job is done. I don't actually need you to hold this darkness for me anymore, because now I've realized why you exist as a catalyst to wake me up, to kick my butt into waking up, into becoming conscious. Now I don't need you. Thank you so much for that job. I love you. Come back home to the source, to the truth that you are. But the thing is, they are going to put up a fight. They have put up a fight, because it can't be won easily. Like, self-realization in a human form is about as precious as it gets. It's the most exquisite gift ever could be given, to be this tangible, this vulnerable, this human, and experience ourselves as source creators. Of course, it's not going to be easy. It'd be in a blink of an eye. I'd be like, oh, now what? Now what shall I create? You know, oh, that was my best gig. That was my best creation, and it was over too fast. Of course, there's going to be resistance. Of course, there's going to be a fight. I don't really believe in us, you know, fighting to win. I just believe in loving everything, and then the fight dissolves. So if any fighting, it would be that darkness doing its very best to still remain dark as long as it can, so that everybody awakens. And I believe, Jen, like you, I do believe that everybody awakens at the point that they're meant to. In their own, and whether it's in this lifetime or the next, whether it's in this universe or the next, I don't know. But those that aren't awakening, definitely are there as a catalyst for us, like to, you know, like when you're in the swimming pool, you know, when you're swimming and you get to the end of the pool and you flip around and you use the wall to push off, and it gives you that propulsion, like Jen, you were saying about, it gave you the springboard. All of the people that we're looking around going, oh my goodness, they're not waking up. Oh my goodness, they're not seeing, they're not helping. Isn't that the springboard for us? I mean, that's what we're doing here, right? It's the springboard to go, okay, what more can I do? How more can I manifest myself? How much more love can I put out there? How much more conscious can I be? And almost just take the layers off and take the lids off and be like, you know what, I'm not going to be shy about any of this anymore. I'm just going to like full all out empowered communication, expression, shining, no matter what somebody else threatens to do or say to you. I encourage that. That's what I believe in.
It sounds like it's lessons in compassion, isn't it? Because we're all well and good being beings, Christed beings of love and light, while everyone's doing what we like and ascending with us. But when you meet that resistance that is refusing, you know, it's an irony, isn't it? We fear our own annihilation, which is why we don't act, and yet we are being annihilated as a result of not acting. Another paradox. And it's like, well, yeah, only a master would run this many rings around themselves. And the duality, as I understand it, has a judgment about it, good and bad. Polarity is necessary for us to move beyond the judgment and then to recognize that you can only have form if there is a shadow and there is light. You can't, form can't exist unless there is that polarity of night and day, but no one's saying one is right and one is wrong. And compassion it's a word with many qualities: discernment, transparency, trust, forgiveness, allowing, right? All these qualities, we can band words around, but until we're faced with it, and we're faced, who are my biggest teachers? They're my sister, my dad, my daughter. They're the people I can't control, right? The people that come at me with my conditioning that I inherited, that I'm like, fuck, how is it works with everyone else and it doesn't work with them? What's going on? And I meet my own wounds and my frustration at not being able to help them move out of their suffering, right? But they're making their choice. So then again, is part of our journey here as we pull the plaster off the wound and we say, there's a wound here. Stop ignoring this wound. It's there. But we also, part of our job, because you said, what's the solution? You asked us to think about it, is we have to dream the new world awake. How do we want to see this panning out? What do we want to see happening that can allow from this horror something phenomenal to occur where we can have peace on earth, not because we're denying what has once been, but because we've made peace with it. We've brought the light and the love and the forgiveness, forgiving, huge part of compassion. But to forgive, you have to accept you're addicted in some way, either to being a victim or being angry or being sad, that consciousness that makes you stubbornly unwilling to forgive also involves facing pain, right? So we're learning. To me, it feels like we've understood things on this level, and the fact that this shadow is still going, no, I'm not going to give up yet, is making us go much deeper into this healing. So we know how to consistently move it in any situation. We can come back to this and not lose it. That's how I see it. Like, we're becoming masters of making sure Atlantis doesn't happen again, of making sure we don't recreate from the past. But part of the job is, what do we want to create instead? How can we see this resolving? We need to have those discussions. No one's really saying that. Everyone's still focused on the problem. We do need to acknowledge it, but we've got to build a bridge. That's where I'm really busy with, is what does the new earth look like that we want to create?
Can I just say, because I've actually come up with a solution, one tiny little solution, like amidst like the millions of possible ones, and that is, I've set up a GoFundMe to raise £1 million to buy billboard space and basically just blast out light codes and like really, really powerful affirmations that are going to activate everyone's higher self. So that's one thing we can do going forward, and looking for donors to, like people with excess money, like let's just take over all the billboards all around the world with really, really super high vibrational messages.
We have the funny memes as well.
Yeah, we could do funny memes. Yeah. Yeah. It would have such fun. We just need some like really, really generous donors. And I know someone's watching this. There's like, we've got a few million like spare.
Conscious billionaires and millionaires, step forward. We want you.
Yeah, right now.
And that's the, you know, it's like people will say to me, well, what's the solution? I'm like, it's love and consciousness, right? It's like, it goes for me. I always use the reference of power versus force, you know, Hawkins, right? And the, you know, the anything above 528 hertz, when you vibrate higher and your cells vibrate higher, you can influence up to 750,000 to 1 million people just by vibrating in higher consciousness, you know. And you know, everything for me is always a personal reference, where I, you know, won a contest on Facebook, which always seems suspicious, you know, and ended up sitting with, you know, the top Hollywood, you know, most influential woman, right? And all these things happened to me to have me believe I was so lucky. Everyone used to ask to touch me, you know, my head would be cut and pasted into a Bob Proctor video, and I was on Long Island Medium and all these things. And I look back and I'm like, that was just a bullshit ego trap, right? I see people now that don't get it. You know, they have a bigger platform and bigger following, and they're like, oh, I just got invited, you know, my quote just ended up on Huffington Post. It's like, it's fucking bullshit. It's created so that you'll never reach your Christed self, right? So that's how we heal the world, right? Is we become truly unconditional love. Like at some stage, I met my twin, of course. And then everything took off. You know, I had biowarfare, I had nanotechnology. It was aerosolized into my head. I was electrocuted. I was launched headfirst from my motorcycle. And I had already been obsessed with things like near-death experience. I had already been told that I'm here to touch everyone I meet with love. You know, so I understood my role, and I kept having symbolism of Jesus. Like, you know, you just can't even believe. And in my young life, I was, you know, atheist and agnostic, and I was the most disconnected person, and I was the opposite of Jen as a mother, right? I hated myself, and you know, my child that's the most challenged in the world today, the most sensitive, you know, I had the worst experiences and fears while he was in the womb. And you know, I definitely see that direct correlation. And you know, I was like the most 3D person. Like we truly are an end times, right? This is truly the Kali Yuga, where it, like you said, it doesn't get any lower than this. But you know, my inherent belief that first of all, I was a child of God, and that every single thing stemmed from that, and that I knew as a soul I would leave this earth when I had already chosen before, you know. So everything, you can't even imagine what was done to me. It got so extreme. It was just like, you know, and I would drive down the road going, if Joe Dispenza can heal himself from a spinal cord injury with his thoughts, I can heal my brain. So to wonder if these, you know, rogue groups, you know, that are, let's say, above the Vatican, that definitely was one clear message. You know, every single thing in the Da Vinci Code except the symbologist is real, right? All those groups. And if you watch Stigmata, and I also had that, where 2 years ago, my wrist kept hurting and I kept getting you know, a cut on my head and my feet would hurt. And I realized it was exactly where Jesus was nailed on the cross, right? And it's like, that is our, you know, if we truly embody unconditional love, and like you said, forgiveness, right? We all share the common soul lesson of forgiveness, no matter what. It's part of our journey. But truly rising into our higher self, and not this ego trapped, you know, where I look and that was programmed for me, that, you know. So all these different entities definitely exist. And then I think, you know, as we hold that higher consciousness, you know, I used to think, oh, I need a huge platform, you know, and I look back and I think, what that significance is bullshit. You know, if I can touch 100 people on this earth in the next 10 years that become their higher self, right? And it's like the 4-minute mile, right? It's like we went through these journeys to become our higher self, so that we open portals of consciousness, right? I've just seen my daughter have the fastest awakening I've ever seen of a human being ever, you know. And then I, of course, click into this twin flame, like I think it was Dr. Harmony. I kept seeing the word harmony, so I come up, and she said the same thing, like our children can go through so much faster now because of our consciousness, and truly holding that love, you know, where I knew I used to pray, you know, I had everything, like there is not a tool left in the toolbox, like every metaphysical thing, you know, alien implants, you name it. And it was just like, I knew that one thing is that I had to just love it, right? I had to love what was happening to me. I had to accept it was part of my true journey, and that I chose it, that was extremely difficult at times. You know, I'd say to my friend who's who was the first etheric doctor in Canada, and she's had 4 near-death experiences, just a wildly, gifted woman. And I'm like, are you sure I chose this? Because I feel like nobody would choose this. And then of course the next step is ending up on calls and hearing about the most diabolical things with children. And then I go, oh God, my journey was like nothing, right? Compared to these souls that have signed up. And I also listened at one point, I forget who it was, some channel who said that all of us intuitives were previously, held in those sort of templates of abuse, right? And that's part of the reason why we're here, is to understand and have that compassion, so, that we can just raise it. But, so whenever it comes to me, a person or anything, it's like, hey, what can you do? Fucking acknowledge it. Please acknowledge what's happening in the world, right? And of course, we all have families that think we're out there, right? There are contrasts, there are gifts so that we, we dig our heels in and try harder. But to your point, Jen, I discovered firsthand that my only relationship was with God, and if somebody had told me I'd ever say that, I would, would have been like, you're crazy on all these fronts. But everything I had was firsthand, experiencing this. And the fact that I'm still alive is just, I definitely feel positive that we're making a huge impact all over the world, and that truly our consciousness will save the world. And love, to your point, and I always resonated with you, Tara, from the very first day. You guys were like my family. It was so easy to connect in unity consciousness with so many amazing souls. So that's obviously your calling too, to touch everyone you meet with love, and know that it truly is the only reason we're here on earth, and that it does change everything.
To connect, Lisa, are you, gosh, I'd love to hear another time more about these stories of yours. That sounds unreal. But I keep coming back to something that you said, Jen. The people that we see as being the ones with the most control, Mr. G with his foundation and all his money and so many clients.
What do you mean that the collective sees? If we don't, he hasn't got control to us.
No. Okay, I'm talking about, because a lot of people think that he does have a lot of power.
The collective projection onto him.
Yeah, that is scary, right? The projected fear, these powerful people up here who if I don't do as I'm told, this is going to happen to me. If I don't wear my mask, this is going to happen. If I open my business, I'm going to get fined and shut down. My children might get taken away. All these fear-mongering and programming that people have been through to put these people that you called the lower minions, which I absolutely love, and I completely agree with you, on a higher level. These people are pawns. They're just the ones that are getting pushed out front so that we can see them with visible faces, because a lot of the stuff is like, you haven't seen nothing yet. You literally haven't, but you will. It's all going to be exposed at some point. But for people, what I'm trying to say is, for people that have put governments, institutions, people of power, money, and all of this stuff into super high degree of power, and therefore you are powerless, and you are feeling powerless against this, and you're scared to listen to your own soul, you're scared to speak out and have your voice heard, you're scared to take your child out of school and take their masks off, for instance. My friend Lisa, she was saying the other day, she saw a 2-year-old with a mask on, and she said it absolutely broke her heart, and she just wanted to go and yell at the mother. Why not? Not to upset or hurt people, but like, it's like I think a lot of people are scared because there's the higher powers. And I think it was brilliant, Jen, that you just put that out there and reminded us they're not the higher powers. They might think they are. We might have fallen for the mind trickery that makes us believe that they have power over us as humans on this planet, and they really, really don't. And what's more powerful is love. What's more powerful is a person in their absolute truth, not just ranting, but really coming from that place of truth. And what's more powerful is when we all come together. What I would really, really love is, this video for me, this gathering of us as sisters here today, for me, I had this feeling that I just wanted to connect my heart with all the other women who have hearts of the mother and all other mothers on this planet, and to collectively, we're all connected in here. We've all given birth, or we're all are women, and we know what it means to love a child and feel protective over a child. And if we can come together and just feel each other there, and just know that there are other women, other mothers out there, and that you are one of us, and you are really important. Your energy and your consciousness and your love is so powerful, and together we could collectively just feel one another as if we're tangibly right here, you know, and hold that energy and hold that power and hold that love for all the children on this planet right now, all of them. Because what our young ones are going through right now is pretty bleak, and I mean, I don't honestly have the words for it, how parents are struggling at home with their children, and how children are having to deal with seeing so many adults being complacent or compliant and wearing these masks, and what on earth is going on in their little heads, and what kind of programming and conditioning is this setting them up for in their life going forward, and what kind of future is going to be created from these kids. I mean, I just want to put a big, massive wall of love all around that, a big blanket of love all around that, and hold those kids. And can we do it together? Can we do it together as women? From our hearts and our wombs. That's what I would know.
That brings us into what we have in common rather than what we don't, doesn't it? It's like we love, and that whatever we believe on the surface, because, you know, you're talking about Mr. G in such a way that people recognize that actually he's, you know, not in the light, but there are so many people that are just living life basically believing that these are our saviors, right? And not that they have power over us and they're controlling us, but willingly giving our power away to them, saying, wow, aren't they amazing? I heard someone say that he had more common sense in his little finger than anywhere else, you know, and like people are arguing for this, for all of them. They're just like, this is, what's it called? Is it Munchausen syndrome? It's like, Stockholm syndrome, thank you. And it's like, folks, where's this leading you? So, you know, if you're curious, just research what that foundation funds. Research the fact that it funds not just the media, but social media, but pharmaceutical companies, but governments, but big companies like is in hand with Bayer and Monsanto. Like, this is real. These are the people that we are saying have the future that we want to align with, right? That we should be moving forward on. Buying up half of America's land. What on earth is this? Like, how can this be a good thing? And that the answer is a genetically modified future. How is this a good thing? It's playing God. So I'm just going to finish with saying, he's a very naughty boy.
Well, the good news is months ago, they had to turn off his comments on Instagram because they were so bad and so extreme. And that's what, so the president of the World Organization of Natural Medicine that I belong to had healed a lot of elites, you know, and worked. And, you know, I said to her a year and a half ago, what, like, how much money is enough? I don't get it. She says, it has nothing to do with money. It's like God-like power.
Exactly.
So I don't see his power anymore. And it's funny because his birthday is like October 28th, you know, it's like 1010, the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. And I see that his power ended last year on a metaphysical level, right? It's, I mean, it doesn't come up much, but and I feel in my heart, he was definitely sexually abused, you know, that he, you know, this is what the godlike power comes from the people that, you know, are connected to the divine. You know, I always, you know, I try to, you know, say to people, they'll go, how do you know? I go, because I'm alive, right? Because I'm alive. I know that my creator and my power and my connection is way better than all his trillions of dollars will ever be. It's absolutely meaningless to our future. It means nothing, you know, it's synthetic food, everything. So I feel eternally optimistic though, that people are waking up you know, exponentially. And, you know, everything we're doing is so important. Like you said, just to acknowledge, just to have this call, just to acknowledge the children, to acknowledge the true mother energy, the real mother energies, we will change the earth. We are changing the earth.
Yeah, I think, you know, now is the time for us to roar very, very loudly. And, you know, we've all been suppressed. We've all had lifetimes of persecution, and we've all done the work to heal and restore and resolve those lifetimes. And so we're ready now to be heard. And they, you know, they've tried to take away this social media platform. It doesn't stop me. It makes me stronger. I've just brought the book through. They can't stop us. And, you know, may that be the leaving message for all of us, especially women, that it's really, really time to speak your truth, even if your voice is shaking. The world needs you to speak your truth, and you need to listen to your heart, because your heart is the most sacred creation in existence, is your heart. Nothing external, you are it. And so you need to listen and then speak what you hear.
And I just got a wave of love passing through me to you as you said that.
And I was just feeling that as well, like our love protects children, protects our children, protects all children. You know, it's like Harry Potter. The mother's love protects the child, right? We surround. Let's protect our children, but also know that we are the child and we are protected in that love. When I'm in that field of love, nothing touches me, nothing. You know, when I have love for myself, it's like the love fills me inside, and it's like everything bounces off. And being in that space of love is the ultimate protection. Nothing can harm you in that space, because you are in the divinity, you are in the light. Nothing gets you. So let's protect and love ourselves, women, sisters, mothers, daughters, everybody out there. Let's love and protect each other as women. Have each other's back, speak up for one another, say, hey sister, what are you doing with that stupid thing on your face? I love you, give us a hug, you know, you must be struggling, come here. And have that compassion and see one another really behind these masks. What's really going on is a lot of struggle, and everybody's sick and tired and had enough. They've got untold struggles happening at home that probably nobody's aware of, you know, and all we see these days is this much of a face. So we don't know what's going on, you know? So let's see one another for who we really are. Bring the humanity back, bring the compassion, the sisterhood back in, and together, okay, just talk to people. What can you do? What's your higher self? What are you being guided to do? What's source creator inside of you guiding you to do? And mine guided me just to have a video. We're all guided, you know, Jen's writing books, we're all doing our thing that we do. And because we're coming from that place of unconditional love, it does have an impact, and it will go out, and we are protected, and we are absolutely loved. And it's an incredible experience to be sharing, all of us right now. This breakthrough, this breaking through the veils, this awakening is why we all incarnated. It is the most sublime, incredible time ever. So whatever we're going through in our own personal little struggles with whatever we're going through, we can always come back and remember, oh my goodness, I chose this. And I knew I was going to be a force for good. And I knew I was going to be a force for love. And I knew I've had so many times around this block, I'm really ready to do this one now, you know. And this is the time, this is the end game. This is the lifetime where we see peace on earth happening, manifested in the hearts and souls and minds of our brothers and sisters on this planet. So don't be afraid to speak out. You're completely protected, and keep sharing your truth.
Can I share one thing on that? Because I hope it's an inspiration for the women that really are, you know, that we're all at different stages of that outspoken, right? And, you know, do the next courageous step you can. One of my clients has gone from being a total scaredy cat and totally just like consumed constantly with worry and grief, to changing the policy of her children's school around masks and around exclusion. And, you know, all she did was she used all of that evidence that's kept, you know, she kept finding through all of the groups that were all, you know, and she challenged the headmaster. She got over her fear of him disapproving of her. And that wild thing in her, that fire that has been suppressed, that is the woman's power, fuel capacity to not take his patronizing, to not take his shutting down, to hold him personally accountable. She's now got together with friends who feel too scared to speak out and use their name, but what they've decided to do is to write anonymous letters to each other's schools and headmasters and headmistresses, and again hold them accountable and say, you are personally liable. Where is your risk assessment? Where is your this? And, you know, I'm not mentioning her name to protect her, because again, this is about us sticking together, right? And knowing we have power, whatever level we are on, wherever we feel we can make a change, make it. Right? And whatever if you got to, my husband's brilliant. He totally challenges people on the master front. He's got that polemic, you know, he's using that battle energy in such a way that's constructive. You know, I'm finding other ways to go, but ultimately it's like, wherever you feel you've got the capacity to do this, step in there and know everyone's doing their bit. But if you're really struggling with your own life, look after yourself first. Get strong, then you can get out there and help. Thank you.
Tara, I'd just like, before we wrap up, I would just like to let everyone know, because we're going to be sharing this on all our platforms, that my book has just been published, and it's on Amazon. I won't be on Amazon for that long, but it is there now. Twin Flames in the Event, and it's a really, it's basically this book. It's like fanning that spark of divinity and remembrance from all the feedback that I've got. That's each page. It's so symbolic. It's just like, so everyone's having that remembrance of their beautiful divine self. So I highly recommend it. Yeah, and it's been out a few days, so it's a very, very exciting journey. So, and also I've got my 3-3 transmission, which is going to be on the 3rd of March. And we're going to be working very deeply with activating abundance codes. We're going to be doing deep work with the Twin Flame Collective, but there's going to be a lot of work to do with like clearing a lot of deep lack programs and really, really embodying our true divine worth. So that's going to be the intention for the 3-3 global ceremony. Just wanted to let everyone know about that.
Oh, beautiful. Well done. Anybody else want to say, promote what you've got going on at the moment? I'm going to put all your details below anyway, so people will be able to find you if they want to find you.
Cool. Well,
yeah.
YouTube, doing co-creation meditations, new moon and full moon at the moment, just utilising the energies that are going on and really shifting. And exactly as Jen's saying, the work that I do with people is about letting go of the fear that's motivating their lives and the lack consciousness. So we really move into a place where we are divinely prosperous and we're bringing in that sustainable wealth, and we know how to just, the fear's gone, you know, we've got it. So we're all doing work like this. Trust your energy, trust what you're feeling attracted to, and know there are so many like us. We're all pulling together. Go where you're feeling guided, folks, and just do the work now. Dive in.
Thank you, sisters. I am going to be relaunching. I launched it really quietly. In fact, I didn't really launch it. I let people start using it last year, and I'm having a proper launch on the 22nd. So that's Monday, for the Self-Love Club. And I'm going to do another video about it. I want you to watch the video. It's going to be absolutely epic. And it basically takes people through the whole self-love journey, through all different aspects of themselves, healing, reclaiming. It's completely beautiful. So I'm going to share that on Monday, but I'm really excited that we're all in the creative energy, right? We're all creating and doing what we love, and that keeps our spirits high. Sisters, I love you. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation, for sharing your light in the world and doing what you do. And thank you to all of you who are watching right now. Please share this, send it to your girlfriends. Make sure your other women in your world see this and have your own discussions about this. Get together, collaborate, create, support one another, and let's just keep putting the love out. And remember, our children are our future. They are everything. I love you. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon.